Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, race number 7 at Keeneland on Bluegrass. Saturday is the Grade 2 Shakertown Stakes. It kicks off a $400,000 guaranteed pick 4 with a 50-cent minimum wager, but you're going to want to get involved a lot earlier than that because DRF Bets has its first post bonus. Bet $25 to win on one horse in race number 1 at Keeneland, Aqueduct, and or Santa Anita. Get a $10 bonus, win or lose. Learn more at drf.com/preps. Let's meet this big and bulky field to kick off this $400,000 guaranteed pick 4. Want to start things off with the 3 Disco Partner, Matt, because this horse is just rock solid. He's won 11 times, $1.3 million in the bank, and it seems like he fires each and every time. Third in this race last year, may not have cared for that soft ground.
Yeah, and not only does it feel like he fires each and every time, especially off the layoff. You go through, he's won on 4 occasions off of a layoff. I should say 5 occasions off of a layoff. So this shouldn't be an issue for this horse if he's ready to go. That just kind of feels like Christophe Clement has him ready to fire when he's coming off the bench. The bigger question for me would potentially be the distance. And I know maybe it's a bit of an anomaly here, but he's 1 for 6 at it. I feel like he might be slightly better going longer, whether it's 6 furlongs, but at the same time, it's not as though he's, unproven at shorter distances. He deserves to be the favorite in here. I expect him to run well.
I agree. I think that he is slightly better at slightly longer distances. I think the 6 at Belmont really seems to hit him between the eyes. I thought he should have won the Turf Sprint Championship last time out at Aqueduct. Joel Rosario just seemed intent on staying down inside, and he was never able to get out until mid-stretch, and by the time he did so, he came with a good run. He just couldn't get to White Flag, who he was giving 4 pounds to on the day. Disco Partner should run well as he usually does, but maybe 5.5 furlongs, a little bit short. Going to have to deal with the layoff, and the price may not be that enticing. You and I are huge fans of the number 11 Imprimis, and why not? He's earned 3 triple-digit Beyer speed figures from 8 lifetime starts, and last time out in the Silks run, I know he got a good trip, but he destroyed some nice turf sprinters.
Yeah, certainly did, and I think better, I don't want to say better, but horses that would be arguably favorites in a spot like this as well. It's not like he was beating some ham and eggers. The interesting thing to me when I look at a horse like this and I look at the morning line, it's very difficult to make a morning line for a race like this. I'm not being critical, but there's just a I have a hard time imagining this horse being 6-1. If he's 6-1 with the highest last out buyer in the field, he's got 3 triple-digit buyers. This distance I don't think is an issue for him, and he's got some tactical ability. I mean, it's 6-1. I didn't pick him. I have him in my top 3, but I would have to bet a horse like this at 6-1. I think he's going to take money.
I picked him second, and I think 6-1 might be a little bit high come post time. I think he's probably going to be a little bit lower than that. He should be off of that 109 figure. What do you think he's going to get from a trip standpoint? Because he's not getting the same trip he got last time where he worked out the in-out journey.
No, unfortunately, he's going to have to carry some ground in this spot. So if you do have reservations about 5.5 furlongs, tack on a little bit extra for a horse like this because of that outer draw. At the same time, I think he has the ability to get close enough where he's not going to come from 100 out of it. We've seen that speed does well in these turf sprints. You want to be forwardly placed. You want to go on with it. But at the same time, I think there's a fair amount of gas in here, and I think he could work out a beautiful situation where, you know what? Sure, you're going to give up a little bit more ground, but I'd rather be in the clear and not have one of these horses that's forwardly placed stop in my face when I'm trying to make my run. I just think he's a primetime player.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector for this race. Unsurprisingly, we are expecting a fast pace up front, and pretty surprisingly, Peter Miller's shipping Conquest Tsunami all the way across the country and wheeling him back in 6 days after he got cooked as an odds-on favorite in the Grade 3 San Simeon. Now, I know he had to go very, very fast that day, but Conquest Tsunami just had nothing left in the stretch. Interesting move for Miller, shipping him here. Does he have the 5 furlong speed to actually clear this field?
I don't know. That's really kind of the reservation for me. He seems to love 6.5 down the hill, and I suppose it's possible that he needed a race, but I mean, this is a horse that's run well off the bench in the past as well. And again, the 6.5, it's a little bit of a unique, quirky configuration. Plays to some horses, doesn't play to others. This 5.5, that's flat. I don't know if I like him in a spot like this.
Now, maybe if he doesn't show his customary 6.5 furlong speed, if that does not translate to the 5 furlongs, maybe Leighton Revenge can get to the lead. The number 10, on occasion, when he's allowed an easy lead, as we saw in that turf sprint at Churchill Downs back in 2017, he's able to outrun big odds. Now, he opened up a giant lead last time out at the fairgrounds and was life and death to hold off a solid optional claiming type named Big Handsome. Leighton Revenge's speed always makes him dangerous, but if other horses go with him, I think it softens him up for closers.
Agreed. I think he's a notch below the best in here. I think he's going to be forwardly placed. Just add to the pace situation. Note he's 0 for 5 over the Keeneland turf course. That's nothing to overlook, because Keeneland's turf course can be a little bit quirky and certain horses can get over it better than others. But to me, he just adds to the pace situation.
Jazzy Times had found himself on turf. It looked like that Wes Hawley had made a prescient $25,000 claim because this then 5-year-old reeled off 2 consecutive wins on the grass, including beating up a couple of next-out winners at Kentucky Downs. That runner-up, Extravagant Kid's a nice horse. He came back to win a stake at Saratoga, then ran 3rd in the Woodford at Keeneland, a graded race with a 94 Beyer speed figure. You just don't put sharp horses away, though, without there being a reason. This is a very long layoff.
Yeah, he's got a couple other things going against him, I think, in a spot like this. Obviously, he's facing really talented horses. This is a quality field. But he's breaking from the inside, and I know he's got a little bit of tactical speed where he could sit in the pocket, but at the same time, again, boy, you're down on the inside with all those other horses rushing to the front and trying to come over and save ground. That kind of position for me gets a little bit dicey. If you get a big number on him, I think he's an interesting sort of underneath candidate, but I just don't know if I'd love him on top.
Miller has Conquest Tsunami. He also has Richard's Boy, and Richard's Boy is comfortable at this distance. The question I have for you is, can Richard's Boy run anymore? I'm willing to give him his last 2 races on dirt. While he's been fine on dirt throughout his career, it's not his preferred surface. And I'm willing to give him the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. He probably didn't care for that boggy turf course. What happened in the California Flag?
Yeah, a bit of a disaster there. I guess you can look at it and say maybe he needed that race that was off of a little bit of a layoff. A couple months he had been gone away. Maybe it was Santa Anita as well, because 5/8 at Santa Anita is a relatively new configuration. They usually don't run that. I personally like him going shorter, and I really like him at Del Mar going 5 furlongs. But having said that, he's going to be forward. And look, he may not have the stamina that he once did or the finish that he once did, but he has that early speed still. He can go out there and burn. And from the 2 posts, I think he's the speed nearest the rail. I think if you're Robbie Alvarado, you just send him and you try to take him as far as you can.
I agree. I think he is going to be very prominent from the outset. It seemed like a lifetime ago that the 4 Shakamat went gate to wire in the Grade 3 Transylvania at Keeneland, and well, it was back in 2016. Now, Roger Attfield's done this before with the horse. He ran him in the 2017 Shakertown off of a long layoff. He probably was using it as a prep. He didn't run very well. And now, this is an interesting spot. Blinkers on, cutting back in distance, 2nd off the layoff. I don't know if Shakamat can step with these horses early. He's more middle distance speed.
That's my initial thought when I look at this horse. But then again, go back to the Shakertown 2017. He wasn't that far off the pace. He was only about a length and a half off early. So it does make me wonder if perhaps there's a scenario where he's a little bit more forward than I expect him to be. And maybe he does work out a really nice trip in here. I just still think he's a better horse going longer.
Bay Music's won 3 in a row in Northern California, going 5 furlongs on the turf. He deserves an opportunity in a race like this, but he was in for the 62.5 tag last time out. Blackout, the 3rd-place finisher of that race, came back to run 2nd at Santa Anita in an N2X with a 90 Beyer speed figure. This horse is fast. I'm not sure he's graded stakes quality.
I mean, you also look at it, all 6 wins have come in gate-to-wire fashion. I find it unlikely that he makes the front in a spot like this. Now you also, the 5.5, I know he's 3 for 4 at it, but there is a part of me that looks at it and says, I don't know if I'm entirely sold on him as far as this caliber is concerned.
I feel the same way about the 7 Square Shooter as I do the 1 Jazzy Times. I both like them a lot sprinting on turf. I both am terrified of them coming back in this spot off such a lengthy layoff. Last time out in the Troy handicap, I don't think he cared for the soft ground. I think that he did the best he could and he was not embarrassed. The race at Laurel 2-back I thought was pretty good. He was never a loser. He just sat right off the pace, took over at will and won easily. He's done good work on turf for Jeremiah Engelhardt. Maybe he's one to watch down the road.
And maybe he's one, look, it's a difficult spot, but perhaps you can use him underneath at a giant price. Maybe he just didn't appreciate the soft going. Maybe it was the class hike. Who knows? That's really one of those things. Again, as a handicapper, you're the one that needs to make the call there. I think if you're going to use him underneath. Chaos
Theory, the number 12, has not run a bad race on turf. He is lightly raced. It's possible we have not seen his best yet. He took the measure of Leighton Revenge last time out in the Colonel Powers Stakes. He split horses 4 wide turning into the lane. He changed back to his left lead. I I didn't really like that at the end, but this is a horse who is going to need some racing luck. The pace should be good for him, but he is a stone-cold closer. Tyler Gaffalione is going to have to make something work out.
You know, the other thing, when I look at a horse like this, I go, is the Colonel Power actually what he is from a number standpoint, or are the other races actually what he is? Because the 91 Beyer and the 115 time form rating, they are far and away outliers as opposed to what this horse had done in his 5 prior starts. If you believe the Colonel Power, sure, he's got a big chance if this pace melts down. If you are like me and you kind of want him to do it again to prove that that's actually what he is, he'd be an underlay, no matter what his price.
Anguston on the far outside, tough post position. Another horse making his seasonal debut, but he usually fires. Good 4th place effort in the Woodford last time out. This is a horse with tactical speed, and Brian Hernandez is probably just going to have to use him, and he's going to be wide, likely going into the turn.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, an outside post in a race like this, unless you have just absolute burner speed and you can clear off, you're going to be giving up ground at some point. I think you just kind of hope that you can get relatively close and you just outstay some of these.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 2 Shakertown Stakes. You're going with the defending champion in this race, Matt. That's the number 9, Bound for Nowhere, who is just awesome winning this race last year. I mean, he humbled Disco Partner. Not too many horses do that sprinting on the turf. He earned that 107 Beyer. Now, that race was over soft ground. He ran great during the Royal Ascot meeting. He came back and did what he had to do at a mile at Kentucky Downs. Understandable that they tried the Shadwell Turf Mile, a very salty race, great wide open. The runner-ups come back to do some good things. Other nice horses have come back to win. But I think this is what he wants to do. I think he's a turf sprinter, and I trust Wesley Ward with that string of bullet works to have him speedy enough out of the gate to take up a tracking spot.
I agree. You know, I picked him in the Shadwell Turf Mile, and maybe the distance is a little bit too far for him. Another thing to keep in mind with Bound for Nowhere, he is not a fan of the gate. So he's going to throw a little bit of a fit before they actually load in. That's just him. Don't freak out when you see that. He's going to probably be a little bit of a nutcase. But I agree with you as far as the distance and what ultimately he is. I think he's a turf sprinter. He has the speed to get forward, establish position. I think he's going to be a little bit aggressive early on. You sit off of those other horses, and I think from a quality standpoint, I think he's just better than many of the other front runners.
With the 2 Southern California invaders in here, with Bay Music, the Northern California runner, with Leighton Revenge, I think there's going to be a bit of a barbecue up front. And I would argue that Will Call might be the best of the closers, and I'm hoping that Javier Castellano is able to work out a trip. I'm also hoping that Brad Cox is not just using this race as a prep for the turf sprint at Churchill Downs on Derby Day, which is what he apparently did in 2018. He ran in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last time out. I just don't think he cared for the yield and going. I just don't think he cared for horses running 118 and 119 Beyer speed figures in front of him. His race in the Woodford, 2 starts back, was okay, finishing second to favorite Buchero, so he likes this course. I think he's a solid mid-priced play, especially if the pace is fast, but I'm hoping it's not a prep. If it is, you'll see me pick him again come Derby Day.
I was going to say, I mean, this is a nice horse. He's done a lot of good things already, 6 of 13 lifetime. You brought up last year the pattern that he used this as the prep to get to Churchill Downs. The distance isn't a problem for him. He's run well, like you say, that Woodford 2 starts back. A little bit late with the lead change, but boy, I like the way that he finished when he finally got over to his right lead. And again, from a pace standpoint, if the pace projector plays out, which I think it will, and I think you do as well, I think he's going to come with a nice run. And who knows, if it's good enough and he's ready, tight enough to get up in time, we'll find out. But at the end of the day, you're probably looking at a nice price no matter what.
611, 312 for me as we kick off the $400,000 guaranteed pick 4 with a 50-cent minimum wager. Give me numbers you like Bound for Nowhere.
Yeah, I like Bound for Nowhere. We'll find out what kind of price we're going to get in here. 9, 3, 11, 6. Keep an eye on Imprimis, though. If you're going to be telling me 6 to 1 on him, I think I'd have to bet him no matter what.
Seems like a must-use in the 50-cent pick 4 at the very, very least. Get involved early and often on Saturday with your first post bonus on the preps. Bet $25 to win on one horse in race number 1 at Keeneland, Aqueduct, and/or Santa Anita. You get a $10 bonus, win or lose. DRF.com/preps is where you go for all the details. Approximate post time for the Shakertown, 4:35 Eastern. Good luck.